Robinson, who's in the slot. Look in that direction on a slant. Huge hit. Ball picked off. The Volunteers on the carry make an interception. Jawan Mitchell. They call him Juju.
Discrepancy. Schuster, they were going to take a shot, but he's hit by Nelson. And Nebraska has picked up the football. Their first takeaway of the game.
Wells way down the field. It is into coverage. It is intercepted. It is over. Lamarian James has sealed the victory for Old Dominion. And fittingly, it comes on a takeaway.
Welcome back to Devy IDP Grind. I'm Hollywood Titan. I'm joined by my co-host, Justice. What's going on, man?
Not much, buddy. Not much. Just trying to get over a cold.
Yeah, you sound a little congested or a little bit under the weather there. So, I didn't know if your Old Dominion team had ruffled your feathers again this week.
Man, I just laughed. I just laughed the whole game. I actually was hoping we were going to lose just because, I don't know. Just like, how do you play a team that literally was a Division II school 2 years ago? And It's 0-0 at halftime. They should have been winning 3-0. They kicked a 60-yard field goal at the half. We ran into the kicker. They got to redo it from the 45, so they got a 45 or a 45-yard field goal attempt, and he missed that. So, yeah, and then at the very end, I was like, they're going to drive and get a touchdown and go for two, and they're going to win the game. Well, they drove, they got a touchdown, they went for two, but they didn't get the 2-point conversion. So we won 10-9. It was a very sad display of football. They gave up 8 sacks to a bad FCS school, and guess we get to play this week.
It's rough.
We get to play Marshall this week, and guess what? Marshall has the most sacks in the nation. We've given up 18 sacks in the last 2 games. So if you have any Marshall defensive linemen like Owen Porter, Sam Roberts, I would 1,000% play them this week.
Yeah, that's rough. That's rough.
Yeah,
they got to get that fixed quickly, or that's going to be a problem all season.
Well, the thing that kind of baffles me
I can't say much. My balls
is Wake Forest, had a different game plan in the second half, and the coaches should have expected to see that again this past week, and they didn't. Texas A&M Commerce basically ran the same defense that Wake Forest ran in the second half the week before. And so I fully expect that everyone's going to run that defense until ODU has an answer for it. And it's basically clogging up the run lanes and rushing the passer, forcing you to pass. And you ain't got much time to pass, so because the offensive line just isn't holding up. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see what kind of adjustments they make this week playing, and they're at Marshall. So Marshall just beat Virginia Tech.
Yes, they did. My Vols didn't do a whole lot better. They started out good, Joe running 81 yards for a touchdown on the first play, and it looked like they were back on track. And then the third quarter starts, and UTSA just completely dominated us on both sides in the third quarter. They had one long scoring drive. It was like 15, 14 plays. The other one was a quick 4 plays, but they put up 14 points on us in the fourth quarter or in the third quarter. and we couldn't even move the ball. We had to punt. We just couldn't do nothing in the third quarter. So a team that we should have hung 50 on and probably beat by 40-something, we let hang around a little bit before we actually pulled away. So we've still got a lot of questions for the Tennessee too. It's apparently Milton's done something to his leg, so he's got a brace on, so we're not exactly sure there. Our offensive line's got some issues still. It's just a mess. And I'm kind of like you at this point. You just got to laugh. So if you don't, you'll go crazy.
Pretty much.
So we'll get started. Now, this one you put on here, and I did not know about this, but LSU defensive back Greg Brooks underwent emergency surgery for a brain tumor on Friday. So I hope the young man does well and recovers, but that's kind of scary.
Yeah, especially for someone so young.
Yep, absolutely. Seems like we can't get away from this realignment stuff just yet. The Pac-12 and the Mountain West are considering a promotion regulation system in their merger talks. They would keep the Pac-12 2 teams and the Mountain West 12 teams, which is a total of 14. Then they want to add 2 teams to get to 16 and then have a split of 8 and 8. With the rumors, which this I found interesting that you put on there, with the rumors that North Dakota State and South Dakota State could be the 2 targets for the addition. If you're going to go that route, FCS, then you couldn't have picked 2 better teams to do it, right? North Dakota State had that run, 10, 12-year run where they just dominated everybody. And now you're getting the Jackrabbits, who seems to be on their own dynasty run at that level. If you watch any FCS, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Those 2 teams are head and shoulders above everybody else. So I kind of like this, especially for the Pac-12. I mean, it makes sense, right? I mean, they're literally on life support as far as a conference goes, and to do something with the Mountain West and maybe 2 other teams to make it 16, I like it. I think it's a great idea if they can work it out.
Yeah. I mean, I have to wonder if North Dakota State and South Dakota State really want to move up, but I feel like if it's offered to them under this setup with the Mountain West and Pac-12 and they say no, well, then they're never going to move up, because I don't know. You can't get, from a geographic standpoint, it's not going to get any better than that for them, right? So I just question whether they really want to move up. Now, the promotion relegation thing I think is really, really cool. So how they said it would work is, I don't know how they're going to figure it out the first year. A lottery system, I don't know. But anyway, so that you have 8 and 8. After the first year, the number 8 in the Pac-12 has to drop down to the Mountain West. The number 1 in the Mountain West moves up to the Pac-12.
Ooh.
Number 6 and 7 in the Pac-12 play each other. The loser goes to the Mountain West. Numbers 2 and 3 in the Mountain West play each other. The winner goes to the Pac-12. So it'd be 2 teams moving up and 2 teams dropping down every year. It just seems really cool to me. It's kind of different. You see that happen in soccer, but we've never seen it in football.
Wow. I was going to ask you what that meant, but that is insane. And I'm here for all of that. And I want it in every conference. I mean, that would be, that's unreal. Like you said, that's not something you see, but I like it. I mean, especially if you've got 2 conferences like the Mountain West and the Pac-12 that don't want to dissolve. Okay, so let's merge together. We keep the conferences, but let's do this. Yeah, that's a perfect idea. And I think
some kind of agreement, right? Pretty cool idea.
Right. Exactly. And I think this is going to put, what's the words I'm looking for? I think this will kind of put an emphasis on rivalry games, right? Like if, I don't know, say you're, I don't know, say you're North Dakota State and South Dakota State, right? Say for some reason they're 2-3. They're already big rivals, but for a chance to jump to the Pac-12 side and play some of those schools, that's going to put a little bit more emphasis of importance on the game. And I think it would be the same if you're already in the Pac-12, right? You don't want to lose if you're 7-8. You are 6-7. You don't want to lose and have to drop down, right? So
Yeah.
that is an interesting twist for sure. I love that.
Yeah. It'd be really cool if it comes to fruition.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the Mountain West is kind of set, but if you want to kind of big boy yourself up, your conference, then you don't really have a choice. And Pac-12, they don't have a choice. They have to do this, I think. So,
yeah, they don't. You're right. We got 2 members.
Yeah. That's very cool. I like that. So after 4 weeks of college football, 5 if you want to count the week 0, but after the first 4 weeks of college football, we are now down to 5 teams that remain winless. East Carolina and Colorado State got wins last week. So that leaves UConn versus Utah State, Virginia versus Boston College, Sam Houston State versus Jacksonville State, Nevada versus Fresno State, and Buffalo versus Akron. I think Buffalo gets the win easily this week. UConn may get a win against Utah State.
I don't know. Utah State played pretty tough,
but I think the other 3 lose. The only one I'd be comfortable with saying winning is Buffalo.
I think Buffalo, and I mean, Sam Houston State, I think, could potentially get a win against Jacksonville State. Sam Houston State's defense is legit. The problem is their offense, but Jacksonville State hasn't been lighting the world on fire either. So, they're both the recent move ups from FCS. So this could be the best opportunity without looking at the rest of their schedule for Sam Houston State to get a win.
Yeah,
but their defense is legit. It's the offense that's struggling.
Right. I think Buffalo for me is the only one that I feel comfortable saying will get a win this week. But I do kind of like saying Houston. Virginia, they're bad.
I think it's safe to say Nevada's not going to get a win against Fresno. So
no, they're not. Virginia's not. Those would be the first 2 I would say will not win this week. Yeah. I don't know if you saw this.
I did see it. I did. I watched that game.
How funny was it, right? And what we're talking about, the Ohio State Notre Dame game, after it was over, immediately post-game interview on the field, and Mr. Ryan Day, he was fired up, wasn't he? I mean,
he was.
Coach Lou.
I was like, and I hadn't heard what Lou Holtz said, and I was like, where the heck is all this coming from? Like, he seemed like a deranged, psychotic man. If you didn't know what
exactly,
if you didn't know what Lou Holtz said,
really.
Every time I see Ryan Day, I just can't help but laugh because, like, he's clearly using Just for Men on his beard. Like, that is so abundantly clear. And it was so bad. I was like, I made a joke to somebody. I was like, that might not even be Just for Men. That might be like the Halloween hairspray crap, Like, it just looks so bad. Like, I don't understand. And he does it he's done it year after year. And I'm like, I don't know, man. He needs to give it up. It just looks so bad, in my opinion. He needs to, stop doing it and if it's going to be gray, it's going to be gray, bro. Like, just go with it. Like,
exactly.
Covering it up just looks so terrible because it's obvious that it's being covered up.
Right. Oh, yeah. I just felt the whole thing kind of funny because he basically said, hey, let me get this off my chest and just let it rip. Right?
He definitely did that.
he did not hold anything back, and it was Ohio against the world and the whole 9 yards, man. And it was so bad that, well, I don't want to say bad, but he was so wound up that when he finally got it off his chest, he even realized that might have been a bit much, and he's like, "Sorry, let's kind of focus here."
It was because, like I said, I hadn't seen what happened or what Julio. I'm thinking, like, what the heck's he like yelling at this little old man about? You know, like he's like ready to kick his ass.
Oh, it was so funny. Oh, I got a kick out of it. I enjoyed it. I thought, man, we need this in college football right now. And then the whole thing with help me, Oregon's head coach saying they're playing for clicks and we're playing for wins. That was pretty good too. So I enjoy it. I like the trash talk or the fired up banter, if you will. I think it makes everything a little more enjoyable. And then our final piece here is Senior Bowl Defensive Player of the Week is Texas Longhorns linebacker Jalen Ford, who you have heard us talk about ad nauseum, and rightfully so. 8 tackles, 4 solos, 4 assists, a TFL, an interception as the Longhorns won 38-6 over Baylor. I'm surprised they didn't run the score up on them. But, man, Jalen Ford is just a stud. If he continues at this level, he's going to easily be a first-round pick, I think.
Yeah, it's a little disappointing from a college production standpoint, right? Because he's not doing as good as he did last year.
Right.
But if you're in a C2C league, you can't drop him because he's going to be drafted in the NFL. He's going to be I don't see how he's not like, a starting linebacker in the NFL in the near future.
Right, and if you drop him now, somebody's snatching him off the waiver wire.
Absolutely.
They're putting the claim in. Right?
Absolutely. I mean, he's not doing horrible to the point you can't start him on the college side, but he's not getting you the production he got you last year.
Right. Which is a perfect segue into our players of the week. So this week, I'm going to let you go second because yours is way better than mine, and rightfully so. But I took Dallas Turner, outside linebacker for Alabama. 5 tackles, 3 solos, 3.5 TFLs, and 2 sacks in the win over Vanderbilt, which they were trailing at the half, 7-6 or 7-3, whatever it was. And then the defense just took over. And he was a big reason to that. Looks like he's everything that we thought he would be. And the question for the past 2 years, right, was, well, he's playing with Will Anderson. What's he going to do when Mr. Anderson's gone? Well, Mr. Anderson's gone, and he's still clicking right along. So that definitely helps his draft stock. It helps his IDP Devy stock. Just an absolute game changer, and I can't wait to really break him down during the draft season. So who did you have for yours?
So my player of the week, he would have been the player of the week for me last week had Lamarian James not kind of done the 1-in-7 time history kind of return of the touchdowns, interception, fumble recovery. I just felt like I had to pick him, right? But this guy has been on an absolute tear all season. That's Danny Stutzman, the linebacker for Oklahoma. This past week, he had 13 tackles, 7 solos, 3.5 tackles for loss, and a sack in the 20-6 win over Cincinnati. On the year, he's standing at 43 total tackles, 19 solos, 24 assists, 2 sacks, 8 tackles for loss, and 1 interception. He is the man for the Oklahoma defense, and he's been from a fantasy production standpoint, he's been one of the top linebackers this entire season. So yeah, definitely deserving of player of the week.
Yeah, and I was watching this game. Actually, I've got it on right now, the replay. is on FS2 right now. Two things. Cincinnati's defense didn't play horrible. I mean, they played pretty solid for the most part. I will say that Oklahoma missed a lot of opportunities to score some big plays. But they were okay with that, right? I mean, it was kind of one of those games where you got to grind it out. Things just ain't clicking. You're playing a decent team in Cincinnati. I thought Oklahoma would really take them to the woodshed and just wire them out. And so I got to give props to Cincinnati for hanging in there. But Dillian Gabriel missed some stuff on at quarterback. He missed some plays, and they had some other miscues. But big win for them. But, yeah, when I was watching this Saturday, it seemed like every time I clicked over there, the first word out of the announcer's mouth was Danny Stutzman makes the play or on the stop or what. I mean, he was literally all over the field. I see if he had not played that game because they might have been in trouble if he hadn't played.
Yeah, and I know he's a guy that Brock brought up last year on our preview series. Of course, Brock owns him in all our leagues. A great find by Brock last year. But yeah, the guy's a stud.
Yeah, absolutely. So if for some crazy, strange reason he is available on your waiver wires, go grab him now. Do it, because the reward or the payoff for picking him up is going to be well worth it. Before we move on to our topics, we got to thank some sponsors. We want to thank Trophy Smack for donating or supplying us with some fancy hardware for all of our listener leagues. This happens to be one of the rings right here. It's called the Bling Ring. Very well made, nice, heavy quality stuff. Comes in a great little pouch or a box, to store it in so you can display it or whatever. If you need something for your league champions, no matter the sport, or even if it's just a workplace contest or something, they've got stuff for that too. So it's not just sports that they cover. They can do anything. And they've got rings, plaques, trophies, belts. The belts are amazing. They've even got a little thing you can mount to your wall to display your belts on. Those things are just high quality, and they're doing some other things. So go over there and check them out for all your fantasy championship needs. We want to thank MFL for sponsoring our NFL side of our listener leagues. IDP Nation and Devy IDP Grand Campus to Canton League. Fantrax, the campus side, is theirs right now. So I know Justice is getting a little fired up about the waiver situation, so I don't want to touch on that too much.
I just kept. I don't know what's wrong, but anyway, hopefully we'll get it figured out.
Yeah, we'll get it figured out.
That's a good reminder for me to go push them through right now because I don't think they ran like they were supposed to.
Yeah. Excuse me. Actually, 24 betting site, locally owned by Tennesseans, for Tennesseans, has all the odds of the big boys, and you can bet on anything: ping pong, baseball, basketball, hockey, darts, football, AAA baseball, you name it, boxing. They cover it. Use the promo code Hollywood100 when you make your first initial deposit. They'll match it up to $400. And then a couple other things here. We just started a Discord, and it's a combined Discord. So it's Devy IDP Grunt and IDP Nation. So all of your IDP needs in one spot. You can chat and discuss whatever from high school all the way up to the NFL. We've got that going up and running. You can find the link to that in our IDP or Devy IDP Grind Twitter bio. Just click on that and it'll take you to it. And then a little shout out to you guys, right? On Twitter, we're up to 390 followers. Our YouTube is up to 23. As we're getting there, we're starting to grow a little bit. So we want to shout out to each and every one of y'all. We thank y'all for supporting us and getting behind us on this endeavor. So, but yeah, please check those out. So now we're to our week 4 fantasy corner, Justice. This is your baby. So you go through the leagues, break down the top scorers. You even do some top free agents and the top scoring players up to date. As I say, every week, some of the listener league scores, maybe some of these names are repetitive. So Justice won't run through those too much, but he will on the initial talk. But yeah, he breaks it down for our listener leagues, some of Brock's leagues, some other leagues that we're kind of in. So he can kind of see, you can kind of see the different scoring and the different players or whatever. So I'll shut up and I'll let Justice talk.
Oh no, you're fine, man. I'm just trying to manually push these waivers through. Looks like it worked, I guess. All right. So we start off with the Devy IDP grind listener league, position specific league, 16 teams. The top defensive lineman, defensive end was Kyle Kennard out of Georgia Tech. And the reason why he was the top defensive lineman is he had 4 sacks this week. So he's got 4 sacks on the season. All 4 sacks happened this week, and he got 32 points. The defensive tackle was Billy Wooden from University of Massachusetts with 18 points. The top linebacker, Jay Higgins from Iowa, 28 points. He was also the high tackle guy this week with 18 tackles total. For the second week in a row, the top cornerback was Kenny Logan from Kansas with 33 points. And the top safety was Mike Senristo from Michigan at 36.2 points. Moving on to Choppy's Campus to Canton League, the top defensive lineman was
Quick question for you.
Yep.
Sorry, I know I'm a little delayed here, but a quick question. You're talking about defensive end Kyle Kennard of Georgia Tech. Huge week, 32 points. We talked about it having all 4 sacks this week. What do you typically do with a player like that? Are you one to rush out and put him on your roster, whether you need him, or maybe to just keep another fantasy manager from getting him? Do you need to see more than 1 week? I mean, what's kind of your strategy with a player that just kind of pops out of nowhere?
I'd go back and look at his stats the previous week and just kind of see, like, was there consistency there? Who were they playing? Were they playing the Sisters of the Poor?
Right.
You know, all those kind of things combined, and then kind of try to make an educated guess. But I'm not going to go automatically pick someone up because they had 4 sacks. Sacks are just so inconsistent, right? He might not get another sack the rest of the year. And so,
right.
You know, I'm looking for consistency in his other statistics before I would consider picking him up.
Cool. Yeah, I'd have to agree with you on that. Unless I was just like super hurting at the position, I'm kind of like you. I got to wait and see if he can do it again. Kind of see what he's done in the past. But, you know, in fantasy, a lot of fantasy managers, they see that big number and they rush right away. So I was just curious to what your strategy was with that.
All right. So back to the Campus Canton League. Like I said, Kamon Rucker was the number 1 defensive lineman from North Carolina, 24 points. The top linebacker was Jason Henderson, Old Dominion, 32 points. And the top defensive back was Terrion Arnold, Alabama, 25.7 points. Moving on to a Legends 16-team league. The top defensive lineman was Jonah Ellis out of Utah, 34 points. Top linebacker was Tyrese Knight from UTEP at 31 points. And Terrion Arnold was, again, the top defensive back. And then the last league is Toonland. The top defensive lineman and linebacker are repeats, Kamon Rucker and Jason Henderson. But we do have a different defensive back, and that was Kendra Gant, Louisiana Lafayette, with 24 points. So now looking at the top free agents in our listener league, the top defensive end in week 4 points was Jonah Ellis, Utah, 34 points. Defensive end Deontay McCray, Western Kentucky, at 24 points. And the top defensive tackle was Newer Gatkuth, Colorado State, 22 points. The top linebackers were Corinne Reed, Utah, 37.7 points. Kane Madrano, UCLA, 27.5 points. And Matt Jones, Baylor, 26.5 points. Now, this next one, I need to look at. He must have had like some bunch of returns for touchdowns or something. But the top defensive back free agent in our listener league was Maxwell Hairston from Kentucky with 62.6 points.
Oh, wow.
So I'm not quite sure. I didn't look up his individual stats to see what the heck he did to get 62.6 points, but had to be a couple touchdowns in there, I'm guessing. Or, it could be maybe even kick returns, whatever. The next defensive back was Lewis Moore, Indiana, 39.8 points. And the last defensive back is KK Meyer from Nevada at 36.6 points. Looking at, as we said last week, we'll look from season to date. So these are the top IDP players through week 4. And the number one defensive lineman is Kyle Kennard with 59 points. So you can see right there, he got half of his points this week. He got 32 of his 59 points came in 1 week, which vaulted him to the top. But, so that tells you he only had that many points. He only had he's only averaging 10 points a week other than the 32 this week. The next is Billy Wooden, UMass, 57 points, and Jonah Ellis, Utah, 54 points. Top linebacker, Tyrese Knight, UTEP, 124 points. Jet Johnson, Mississippi State, 85 points. And Donovan Manuel, Florida International, 84 points. The top defensive back is Hunter Wohler, Wisconsin, 83 points, followed by Miles Hurd, Louisiana Tech, 76 points. And then Dylan Thieneman, Purdue, 75 points. So, yeah, right there you can just see, kind of answer to your question, Hollywood. Kennard, he's only averaging about a little less than 10 points a game, but this week he had 32, but it was enough to make him the top defensive lineman. That one huge week.
Yeah. Speaking of Hairston, Maxwell Hairston, who you mentioned, here's his little breakdown, and they were at Vanderbilt this week, so that should have told you all you need to know, right? But he had 4 tackles. All 4 were solos. He had 5 PBUs, 2 interceptions, and he returned both interceptions for touchdowns. So,
and they were probably
should have been one of our players of the week.
Right? They were probably,
yeah.
How long were they? Does it say?
Let's see if I can see that.
Guess he would have got the yards for that too.
Yeah, it's not telling me where I'm looking here. I'm looking on their website. It doesn't really say, but
I'm
looking up the 5 PBUs, 2 interceptions, and 2 returned for touchdowns. That's pretty huge.
One was a 29-yarder, and one was a 54-yarder.
Yeah. Yeah, and I believe that, if I'm not mistaken, I did catch the first part of that game. I think the first one come early in the first quarter. It was like a 29-yarder, I think. So, heck of a week. We kind of missed on having him for player of the week.
Yeah, that is a pretty good week.
But yeah, I love how you break this down, the overall scores, player to date, and then by league too. I think it's so interesting to see. You mentioned Donovan Manuel on here for Florida International. This dude is just a tackling machine. Now, if you're from around here in Tennessee, you kind of know who he is because he used to play at ETSU. And so he's a transfer. And he was one of their better players too. And he is just balling out right now for them. And speaking of ETSU, another player that you'll want to keep your eye on is cornerback Elijah Huzzy, also transferred. He's got a twin brother that plays at ETSU still, but Elijah, he transferred to North Carolina and returned a punt for them the other night for a touchdown, had an interception. So he's doing a little bit of everything for them. Just somebody to put on your watch list and kind of keep an eye on in case you need somebody. So our 5-star topic, our week 4 thoughts and impressions as we look back. Don't know how much you got to see of the Notre Dame Ohio State game. For me, I think talent-wise, I think they were fairly evenly matched, in my opinion, from what I got to see. But I think coaching made the difference, especially towards the end when you've only got 10 players, on the field defensively for Notre Dame. They had 10 players when they gave up the long pass, and then it's 1 yard to go into the end zone, and you still only have 10 players on the field. So just little things like that for me, I think, gave Ohio State the advantage, and clearly they won. But I think Notre Dame's a legit team. It's just going to take them maybe another year, getting some of this stuff fine-tuned. But I thought that was one of the better matchups of the week.
Yeah. Yeah. Just it's a shame that, at the end there, they only had the two last plays, only had 10 men on the field. But
yeah.
I mean, I was hoping for I was rooting for Notre Dame, wanted them to pull it out, but they just couldn't do it. But it was a great game.
Yeah, I didn't really have a preference, but it was a good game for sure. I know you love this one. Oregon absolutely destroyed Colorado. I got to watch maybe most of the first quarter before I clicked over to watch my Vols play. And pretty much that's all you needed to see for that game because it was, 35-0 after the first quarter. And they just kind of put it on cruise control the rest of the way as Colorado they kind of looked like we thought they might look against some top teams, right?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't get to watch any of that game because it started the same time the Old Dominion game was, but we talked about it last week. They're I don't the thing that kills me is like now all the people are saying, "Oh, what'd you expect? It's his first year." Now they're making excuses for him, which the whole problem is this is. They got the ESPN hype machine behind them, and we talked about this back when they had the spring game. That it's just way overblown, and I think what you're seeing is people are tired of hearing it, and so when it blows up in their face, people are gonna point it out, and it's not saying it's Deion's fault or whose fault it is, but when somebody is force fed, Colorado content 24/7, they don't believe me when they get their opportunity to say in your face, they're going to say in your face. And so I'm really kind of shocked by the reaction of some Colorado fans saying, "Hey, why are y'all, we're supposed to lose. We were a 1-11 team last year and all these things." And okay, but then you weren't complaining when ESPN's hyping you up, right? And they still are. I saw something today, and it was about how is Colorado going to react to the big loss, and it's all about Colorado, which is fine, I guess, but unless you're a Colorado fan, people are just tired of hearing about it, I think.
Yeah, and let me say this: Dion owned up to it, right? After the game was over, he came out and he said, "Look, they kicked our tails, no doubt about it." He said they kicked our tails. He said, "But I went in the locker room and I said, look, pick yourself up because nobody's feeling sorry for you. Nobody's feeling sorry for us. They're not doing it." Kind of goes with what you said, right? When it's force fed, nobody gives a shit. They're tired of seeing it. So I think his message, he's owning it, right? When they win, he's taking all the praise, and when they lose, he's putting it on him too. So from that standpoint, you got to give him kudos. But I think you nailed the nail on the head, right? Perfectly. It's just ESPN and Fox Big 12 noon. They're just force feeding it to you through a funnel, right? I mean, you can't even come up for air long enough to do anything else. And yeah, like I said, I got to watch the first quarter and most of the first quarter before I turned over to the Vols, and it was rough. I mean, one thing that showed up is something that me and you and Chop kind of mentioned back during the Big 12 game, spring game, was their defensive line, where it's so small. These big offensive linemen for Oregon, man, took them to the woodshed. It was rough. So Colorado's exceeded any expectations that I had, and most people have, I think. So kudos to them for that. And I don't think they're done. I think they're still going to pull off some stuff. But when you start playing teams like Oregon and stuff like that, any flaws that you have are going to get magnified. So they've got some stuff they got to work on. But I didn't expect it to be that bad, not in the first quarter. And I also was kind of surprised that Oregon didn't run the score up, because that's something they do, right? They ain't scared to hang 80 on anybody. So I think, their head coach kind of said, hey, we proved our point with 35 points in the first quarter. We're going to back off. Don't make us put the foot on the gas. So,
yep.
Florida State beat Clemson in overtime, and that was one of the better games of the day. I really thought Florida State would manhandle them a little bit, but it being at home for Clemson, Dabo had his game fired up and ready to compete. It just, at the end of the day, it was just a little too much. I don't think Klubnik is there yet to pull off a game like that. I think that's still kind of above his experience level. And I don't know that Clemson had enough full talent around him to try to pull that off. Now, they did, it looked like they were going to, but at the end of the day, I think Florida State just outmatched them and overpowered them.
No, I agree. Clemson did, though. They did put up a good fight, which I fully expected. But at the end of the day, I do think the better team won the game for sure.
Yeah. Penn State shut out Iowa 31-0, I think it was. We talked about Iowa's offensive coordinator having a clause that he's got to score. I think it was 24 points a game. It's a good thing I ran it up, as we mentioned last week, because this week was a complete dud. And
yes.
Even as good as a defense as Iowa has, and they have a good defense. When your offense can't score any points at all, it makes it so hard on your defense. I mean, it just makes it so hard. So, and we were talking off the air. Jay Higgins and Nick Jackson was it, right?
Yes.
I think they had 31, 32 tackles between the two of them.
Yes. Yeah, they both ate this week, but too bad for their offense. Like, I don't know, maybe they should put him at running back and see if they can do something. I mean, I really I don't know. Like, yeah, I mean,
No, please don't, because I have them in a couple fantasy leagues, so I don't want them hurt. Just let the offense continue to suck and then do what they do. And if you don't know, Higgins had 18 total tackles. Jackson had 13 tackles. I think 8 were solo, and he had like 3 TFLs and 2 a sack or something. So those 2 are monsters. And that was kind of the question, right? Because Higgins broke out in week 1. Everybody's expecting Jackson.
Yep.
And I think you see now that they both can coexist on this defense because there's going to be plenty of opportunities for them to eat. And then you've got some true freshmen shining here. So this is interesting. You've got linebacker Sunshine Perkins for Ole Miss, 5 tackles, 2 solos, 2 sacks. You've got linebacker Tackett Curtis, 7 tackles, 4 solos, 2 sacks. You've got safety Caleb Downs, 5 tackles, 2 solos, a pass deflection. Linebacker Whit Weeks for LSU, 9 tackles, 2 solo, a half a sack. Defensive lineman Deshaun Womack for LSU, 2 tackles, 2 solos, a sack. And defensive line Kelby Collins for Florida, 3 tackles, 2 solos, and a half sack.
That's just what they did this past week.
Yes. Perkins is really starting to develop into a really good player. I mean, he was highly recruited, right?
Yes. Yeah.
But man, he's to come out and do this as a true freshman. It's kind of like Caleb Downs, right? What they're doing, both of them, is kind of really impressive.
I would have never guessed Perkins. I mean, Downs, like, it's not really surprising to me. Right. Perkins is a little bit of a surprise to me. When I watched his high school film, like, you know, he played running back and linebacker, and like, he was a ball player. He was a football player in every sense of the word. And so, right. But I just wasn't sure, like, you know, he's going to the SEC, going to be playing linebacker full time. It might take him some time to, you know, make that transition. So I'm a little bit surprised that he's like coming out the gate, you know, doing as well as he's doing. That does surprise me some. He kind of reminds me of what Harold Perkins did last year.
Yeah, those 2 for sure. Yeah, it does. It absolutely does. Yeah, those 6 have definitely balled out this week. So, and the good thing about players that are that young performing that well is you get them on your fantasy team, you've got control of them for at least 3 years. So if they're true freshmen, you've got this year and another 2 years that you have control on your IDP Devy before they can even begin to think about moving on to the NFL. So, you know, I kind of consider that in some of my IDP rankings too. So, or Devy rankings. So, yeah, awesome. Like that.
The one thing I'll say about Whit Weeks is he's kind of the last couple of weeks he's been playing for the injured Omar Speets. So it'll be interesting to kind of see what happens when Speets gets back. If they end up rotating or what kind of goes on there.
Well, you think that even with Speets back, you would have to think that Perkins has kind of earned he's kind of earned a role. Weeks, not Perkins, but
yeah, I mean, I think it just kind of depends, like what their objective is. Like, are they going to try? I mean, they could be. I mean, he's played the last 2 weeks for sure. I'm not sure if he's played more than the last 2, but they could be saying, "Hey, we want to preserve his eligibility. And if he's already played 2 games, they're only going to let him play 2 more." I don't know. Clearly, like if he's starting now, the chances of him only playing a couple more games are pretty slim, right? Because he was already pretty high up on the depth chart. So it'll be kind of interesting. It'll just be interesting, something to pay attention to when Speeds comes back. I thought Speeds would be back this past week, but he wasn't. So, and I think as long as Weeks is playing well, they're not going to rush Speeds back either. So, just be interesting to see. And then the two linemen, Womack and Collins. I feel like it's always good when freshman linemen can get on the field.
Yeah, because that's really hard to do, and it's even harder at the NFL level, right? Because we talked about Ed Oliver and Derek Brown being two of the biggest stars in that draft class, right? A few years ago, and now this is what, year 3, I think, for both of them, and both of them are starting to really shine. So, even coming from high school to college, that's a position it's hard to excel at because of the depth and just what it takes physically to be able to perform at that level. So, and I would say this about Weeks. Even if Spates does come back and kind of puts him on a back burner, I'm still going to try to pick him up because you've already clearly saw, even though it's a small sample size,
Right.
You're already seeing he's the man, at least next year. So even if for some reason he didn't play any more games and they redshirt him or whatever, he's one that I think you take a flyer on and add for eat a roster spot for this year.
Yeah. Yep. One last thing I wanted to mention was if you own Jackson Mitchell, you might have been wondering what happened to him this week. Did he get hurt or what? Because I was wondering the same thing, but he didn't get hurt. Apparently he got ejected in the first quarter of the game for a targeting call. And Jim Mora apparently blasted the refs, the ACC refs about it because I guess, it doesn't look like it's targeting at all. But the positive news is it happened in the first quarter, and he won't miss this week's game, right? So, so he should be back to his normal self this week.
Yeah, I kept checking the scores. I was like, why is he not getting any tackles or what's going on here? And every time I turned it over to the game real quick, he wasn't on the field. I was like, what the shit? And then finally, I think it was the third quarter or something, they had went back. The announcers mentioned it. And I was like, okay. So that makes sense. He's not hurt. Woo! So now let's look ahead to week 5, right? We got some big matchups this week. Kansas ranked finally this week at number 24. They played number 3 Texas at 3:30. You've got Utah 10th ranked versus Oregon State 19th. You've got the 8th ranked Trojans versus Colorado. Florida 22 versus Kentucky. Georgia number 1 versus Auburn. Number 2 Michigan against Nebraska. Number 13 LSU versus number 20 Ole Miss. Number 11 Notre Dame versus number 17 Duke, and South Carolina versus number 1 ranked Tennessee. Before we get started here,
I was just looking at what the issue was with the Jackson Mitchell thing. So apparently he sacked the quarterback. They reviewed it, and they came back and they announced that it was not targeting, but it was just roughing the passer. Well, before the ball snapped, they said, hold on, wait a minute, we got another angle. Now we're going to review it again.
What?
Yeah. And so then they reviewed it again and then called it targeting. So, yeah, I can see why Morris kind of ticked off because they announced that it wasn't, and then they re-reviewed the review. So, yeah.
I don't agree with that. You once you make the review, take whatever time you need, but once you make that review, I don't think you go back and change it. That's just
so that's what happened. But Jackson Mitchell will be back this week. So,
well, that's good. Talking about our week 5 matchups. I know USC is ranked 8th, right? And I know you hate Colorado. But I've had the privilege of setting up. I
just don't like being force fed I don't like the hype, the overhype.
Right.
The hype machine.
Right. So I've had the privilege of setting up watching the West Coast games late at night. That's just something I love to do. So I've watched a lot of USC this year. And for as good as that team is on offense with Caleb Williams and the Rice and not and all the weapons that they have, right? They are legit one of the best offenses in the country. That defense is the equivalent, except they're bad. And Colorado is going to put some freaking points on the board against them. I don't care what anybody says.
And the
that
thing is,
defense is awful.
They have talent on defense. I just think like the coach, Alex Grinch, has got it. Like why they brought him back, I don't know. Because they have talent. They have talent on defense. And they shouldn't be as bad as they are, but it is. And yeah.
Oh, they're horrible, dude.
Yeah, they are.
I mean, they are horrible. I expect them to at least give up 30 to Colorado, at least.
I would say I'd feel more comfortable around 28, but yeah.
Yeah, I'm just saying that defense is so bad, and I'm like you. I don't know. I mean, they can't go all year just outscoring teams. I mean, I guess they could because they're scoring 50-something points a game or close to it. But
yeah,
at some point, you're going to play a team that
they're going to play Utah. They're going to play Oregon. They got to play Washington, and those are all more, well, especially Oregon and Washington. They're more complete teams, right? You know, they're good on offense and defense.
And Utah's like the complete opposite of
right.
USC. Utah's probably got one of the top 3 defenses in the entire country. They just can't do nothing offensively. So, yeah, and Washington is just unreal. Washington will beat USC and make it look bad when they play. That's going to be an ugly game for USC. That'll be one of those games where it's going to leave a bad taste in your mouth if you're a USC fan, because that one could get ugly quick.
Yeah, absolutely.
Any of these others that stand out to you? I know Georgia kind of struggled a little bit in the first half before they pulled away. LSU kind of struggled. I think Oregon State has a chance to beat Utah just because their offense is better, but they're going to have to be, I think, on point because that, like I said, that Utah defense it's no joke. It's legit one of the best 3 defenses in the country. So now things may change if they can get Cam Rising back, which will help them. But
yes, that'll help. That'll help a lot.
They've just kind of not been in on offense. Yeah. So anything you like this week out of these matchups? Does Duke have a chance against Notre Dame this week?
It's at Duke, so I mean, I think so. I mean, I wouldn't have picked them to beat Clemson. They beat Clemson, so
you believe in Riley Leonard?
I do. I think I think. I mean, they're going to live and die by him. So,
right.
I mean, the game I probably like the best, the LSU Ole Miss game, I think has some shootout potential there. That could be a high scoring game.
I don't know because they didn't do very well against Alabama. So,
well, they didn't. But Alabama's defense is decent, right? The offense is the problem.
Yeah, but LSU's offense is what's good. You got Daniels and Neighbors and I forget the other receiver.
Brian Thomas.
Yeah, Brian Thomas. I just don't know that Ole Miss can stop them, I guess.
Is Judkins healthy, right? There's, people saying he's not healthy, but he's been playing. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. That just feels like that could be a shootout type of game to me. And so I like offense. So even though we are a defensive podcast, I think from all around game, I could see the Notre Dame Duke game potentially being the best all around game. I guess.
Yeah, I think so too. Texas is
Um,
going to destroy Kansas, I believe.
yeah, but that's what you kind of tend to think. But Kansas has in the past had Texas's number, so that should be a decent one. Oregon State, they lost to Washington State last week. They get Utah this week. Yeah, I mean, you know what? You know what's kind of funny though is this is, for all intents and purposes, let's just say this is the last year of the Pac-12, and this is by far like their best year in like as far as I can remember.
Oh yeah,
You got Utah, you got Oregon State, Washington State,
Washington.
USC, Washington, UCLA. They're pretty stout.
And I'll say this for the value of a single player transferring in the portal, one of the best is Michael Penix leaving Indiana to go to Washington.
Yeah,
Best career decision move ever
with his coach there. Yeah, I mean, because it's him and Caleb for the Heisman.
And I think he's got Caleb right now. I really do. I think he's got Caleb. I mean, it's still early. We're only 5 weeks into the season here. But if I had to vote today, it's Michael Penix easily. Kentucky, I say this lightly, they're going to upset Florida.
Yeah, it's kind of funny that a ranked team is the underdog. It's an unranked
exactly.
team.
Because I don't think Kentucky is an underdog, right?
No.
They're gonna put a hurting on Florida this week. I don't know. Georgia, I think Auburn's just not there. They run over them. Michigan probably beats Nebraska. Sorry, Chop.
Pretty good, yeah.
Yeah, sorry, Chop.
Tennessee, South Carolina could be a good one.
Oh, this thing. Okay. How the hell do you watch what Tennessee's done the first 4 weeks and then open up against South Carolina as a double-digit favorite? No freaking way. If I'm gambler right now, no way am I taking Tennessee to win by double digits. Even if they turn out and blow them by 50, I'd feel better not taking that chance because Tennessee's got some questions. They got some injuries and yeah, I know we're at home, but I would stay away from the points on that. If you want to take Tennessee to win, then I could get behind that. But, yeah, double-digit favorite, no way. But, yeah, you've got it listed here. Oregon State, or 19th ranked Oregon State, is a 3-point favorite over number 10 Utah. I think that's going to be close. I think Utah's defense is much better than anything else. It's just their offense. I don't know if they can score enough points to beat Oregon State. I think Texas opened as a 17-point favorite over Kansas. I know history says Kansas can hold up, but I think Texas just railroads them this week. Number 13, LSU is a 3-point favorite over Ole Miss. I'll probably take LSU and the points there. I think they probably wind up winning by double digits in this game. And then number 11, Duke. Number 11, Notre Dame is a 5.5-point favorite over Duke, 17th ranked Duke. That's close, I think. But if Duke plays like they have, especially Riley Leonard, and their running back, I think his name is Waters, if those two can get in a rhythm and going, who knows? They might pull this off against Notre Dame.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of like I said, it's all on Riley Leonard, all on his shoulders. They're going to go as far as he can take them. But Notre Dame's a good team. Notre Dame is a good team. They got a strong defense. They got Sam Hartman, Audric Estime. He spreads the ball. Sam Hartman does a great job of spreading the ball around. I don't think we've heard the last from Notre Dame either. I mean, I think they could get right back into that playoff hunt potentially.
Yep, I agree. I think that kind of does it for this week, unless you have anything else. Go wherever you – well, first of all, I want to say go check out your other podcast, the G5 Hive. You want to tell everybody about it a little bit?
Yeah, so me and Luke Probasco started a new podcast this season, just talking about G5 college football. We do talk about it from a college fantasy football angle. It is offense only. Sometimes I'll mention like generically, like defense, but we don't really talk about specific defensive players. But yeah, we record every Monday. 10:15 Eastern. It's live on YouTube, on Twitter, and then Google Podcasts, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Whenever we get done recording, we load those up. So they're usually up, somewhere around 11:30 midnight Monday night. So they're ready for you on Tuesday morning. But the YouTube and the Twitter is available live when we go live around 10:15 every Monday.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm definitely going to tune in later and give that a watch. So please subscribe, rate, and review them. And speaking of that, go over to YouTube and give us a rate, review, and a subscribe as well. Help us grow. Same thing wherever you listen to podcasts. If you don't do the YouTube thing, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, Stitcher, Podbean, iHeartRadio, anywhere that you can listen to podcasts, we're available. Give us a 5-star review. Or you can go over to the idpnation.com page. There's a whole review tab. Leave a review there. So tell us what you like, what you don't like, what you would like to see for us to do going forward, or maybe there's a segment you don't like. Let us know, right? You can follow us at Twitter at Devy IDP Grind. You can follow Justice at Justice_2318. And you can follow me at Hollywood Titan. Pretty good week. The season is flying along. So this is week 5 coming up. And what does that mean? That means we are pretty much halfway through the season already for college fantasy. I think we play, 10 games, Justice, in most leagues, and then the last 3 or 4 weeks is the playoffs. So, let that sink in. We are halfway through the college fantasy football season. So it's like it goes too fast once it gets here. We hurry, get here, and then it flies by. So, but please check us out. Spread the word about us. Help us grow. And we will be back next week. Thanks for following. Thanks for all your support. And with that, we are out.